The United States says Al-Qaida, Taliban exemplify nuclear threat. The White House has warned that Al-Qaida, or perhaps the Taliban, are quietly hunting for an atomic bomb, adding urgency to a historic summit where President Barack Obama will try to persuade world leaders to step up efforts to keep nuclear weapons out of terrorist hands. Expectations for decisive action by the 47 countries are low because existing controls haven't worked as well as hoped. And some nations worry tighter regulation will only slow civilian nuclear power projects. In other words, it's too late. It's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when now. These are more signs. Revelation 18 comes next. Leaders gather for nuclear talks as new threat is seen. 3 months ago, American intelligence officials examining satellite photographs of Pakistani nuclear facilities saw the first wisp of steam from the cooling towers of a new nuclear reactor. It was one of 3 plants being constructed to make fuel for a second generation of nuclear arms. The message of those photos was clear. While Pakistan struggles to make sure its weapons and nuclear labs are not vulnerable to attack by Al-Qaida or the Taliban, the country is getting ready to greatly expand its production of weapons-grade fuel. So, it's not really a matter of if, it's just a matter of when now. The Pakistanis insist that they have no choice. A nuclear deal that India signed with the United States during the BUSH administration ended a long moratorium on providing India with the fuel and technology for desperately needed nuclear power plants. Now, as critics of the arrangement point out, the agreement frees up older faculties that India can devote to making its own new generation of nuclear weapons, escalating one arms race, even as President Obama and the President of Russia sign accords to shrink arsenals built during the Cold War. In other words, history repeats itself. Mr. Obama met with the leaders of India and Pakistan on Sunday, a day ahead of a 2-day Washington gathering, with 47 nations devoted to the question of how to keep nuclear materials out of the hands of terrorists. In remarks to reporters about the summit meeting, Mr. Obama called the possibility of a terrorist organization obtaining a nuclear weapon the single biggest threat to U.S. security, both short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Again, in other words, it's not really a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. President Obama is focusing high-level attention on the threat that already exists out there. And that's tremendously important, said Sam Nunn, the former Democratic senator from Georgia, who has devoted himself to safeguarding global supplies of weapons material, enough, by some estimates, to build more than 100,000 atomic bombs. Why in the world does the world need that many? But the fact is that new production adds greatly to the problem. Nowhere is that truer than Pakistan, where 2 Taliban insurgencies and Al-Qaida coexist with the world's fastest growing nuclear arsenal. According to a senior American official, Mr. Obama used his private meeting Sunday afternoon with Pakistan's newly empowered Prime Minister to express disappointment that Pakistan is blocking the opening of negotiations on a treaty that would halt production of new nuclear material around the world. Experts say accelerated production in Pakistan translates into much increased risk The challenges are getting greater. The increasing extremism, the increasing instability, the increasing material. That's going to complicate efforts to make sure nothing leaks. The trends mean the Pakistani authorities have a greater challenge. Few subjects are more delicate in Washington. In an interview, Mr. Obama avoided the question about his progress in building on a 5-year, $100 million BUSH administration program to safeguard Pakistan's arms and materials. The summit meeting will aim to generate the political will so that other nations, Mr. Obama's own administration, can create a surge of financial and technical support. Mr. Obama plans to open the summit meeting with a discussion of the scope of the terrorist threat. The big challenge is to get world leaders to understand that it's a probability, an event that requires urgent action. This is more signs. In other words, it's not just a matter of if, it's just a matter of when now. Revelation 18 comes soon. That's just the way it is. Revelation chapter 18, verse 7. How much she has glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she says in her heart, I sit as a queen and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Verse 8. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judges her. 9. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her, and they shall see the smoke of her burning. Yes, these are more signs of the end times, transition days. And when that happens, huge changes will come to this world. Perhaps that's the only way to get change, real change to happen. These are more signs.